Hey everybody, how's it going? I am Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? And today, as soon as I get some background jazz, who can think without background jazz? Today I'm doing Horace H.H.Hoover. So Horace H.H.Hoover is currently a comic book that's being published by Alterna Comics. Available at alternacomics.com, issues 1 and 2, sort of like a 1920s paranormal investigator. It's on newsprint, sort of a occult investigator who basically travels around pocket universes, investigating strange books and hauntings and ghosts and whatnot. So check it out. So that's what I'm doing today. I started this a few days ago, so I got pretty far. So today, I have Horace. So I have Horace here. I'm on a delay, so this is gonna be tough. We have Horace, Max, and Slurp, which are his partners. And then we have sort of this large... Alright, 1 second. I'm gonna have to take care of this delay. This ain't gonna work. Just gotta close out everything, make sure my Wi-Fi is not getting hit, because it's a little too difficult to stream on a delay because I can't see exactly what's on the screen at any given time. So let me turn this camera on and off real quick. Hey Mind Tunnel, how's it going? Sorry, I got some technical difficulties. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, so at least the delay is fixed. Just gotta tweak it a bit here. Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that. Are you working on the 3rd issue? Actually, I'm working on the 4th issue. So the 3rd issue is done, and I'm on page, I think 10 pencils for issue 4. And issue 4 sort of wraps up the Smoke Man story, and then issue 5 will be a self-contained story, which I'm excited about that. It's nice to wrap a story up, but it's also exciting whenever you get to start a new story. So I'll probably be working on this guy most of the day. He's primarily like the last large part of the drawing, outside of the trees, but trees are pretty, I don't know, I don't want to say they're mindless, but shouldn't require too much effort. Is the third issue available for sale? Not yet. So what we're doing is, instead of doing seasonal campaigns like we have in the past, we're going to do title-only campaigns. So there's going to be a Horace H.H.Hoover campaign that is for issues 3, 4, and 5. And there will also be merch on there and other things that you can get. So unfortunately, it's going to be a little longer of a wait because I have to get all 3 issues. But it'll be nice because then you'll get a bundle of Horace H. Hoover, and then you'll be able to finish out the mini-series. Hey, Blue Teddy Narrations, how's it going? Good afternoon. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing these, like, pinups, one-off drawings for potential covers or concept art or things like that. But I had stepped away from doing pages temporarily, just because, like, kind of once you get in a groove doing pages and you get out of it, you definitely have to kind of work back into it. So I had been out of town for a bit, and I was doing all these drawings here. So I finally jumped back into working on pages for issue 4, which is nice. For a brief moment, I got a little stuck doing thumbnails. I did thumbnails after thumbnails after thumbnails, and sometimes you just gotta move forward with what you have and then figure it out on the page. As great as thumbnails are, I mean, you can't solve everything through a thumbnail. You can get some big questions answered, but you know, until you're actually on the page, sometimes you won't know what you need to solve. Now all these like really large areas of black, probably gonna hold off until pretty close to the end. I might work a little bit into them. I can always make the call whenever I'm at the end of a drawing, whether or not I want to go solid black or leave a little white, but I just feel like if I do it too early, then I'm stuck and I can't back out. I would much rather get a bunch of structure done and then worry about the blacks. I'm really trying to stay close to the original pencils that I laid down in hopes that my initial instincts for the drawing were correct. I ran into that plan yesterday. I blacked something out and then didn't like it. I glared at it for a while, but for some reason that didn't do too much. Now this sort of, what I'm doing here, speaking of all blacks, is I'm leaving a lot of white because I really want to show the form of his hair. So definitely leave white. I gave him like a bunch of, I don't want to call it jewelry, but say trinkets and things like that hanging from his neck. So it's mostly to give the impression of things. I mean, I didn't design jewelry and these weird things around his neck, so I just got to make it look You just gotta pop a little bit of detail in certain areas. Just to give it a man-made quality, we'll say. You know, some people talk about, you know, imagining the colors as they're doing the inks or in the pencils. I try not to because you might put too much of the solution on the colors that you normally wouldn't. It's tempting, but you know, if you want to differentiate between characters or the character in the background or something like that, and you know that you're going to color it or somebody else is going to color it, you might be tempted to put less focus on that. Because you're like, well, I can have the colorist or me or whatever just pop out the the character from the background in this scene with color, as opposed to using value to do that, or contrast. So, I'm still on the page, yeah. So I try not to think too far ahead on that kind of stuff. I do have like a tone in mind, but definitely not specific colors. Whenever I'm coming up with a new character, I know a lot of people talk about, well, they only learn or know their character after they figure out, I don't know, motivations for a specific scene, their childhood, stuff like that. For me, I would say it's 80% eyebrows and 15% teeth. If I got those nailed down, I'm pretty far along in the character development. As far as his jewelry, I imagine just like simple wire being twisted around things. Bone, maybe. So it's definitely not like cast jewelry or anything like that. And then maybe little stones or things that are attached somehow. Just set inside the bone or something like that. That is definitely an approach I've not heard before. I mean, we all have our weird, like, I have a weird thing with teeth. I mean, that's one of the first things I start with is teeth. I've always had a phobia. I've always had a phobia of losing my teeth, and nightmares and stuff like that. So teeth are a big deal. And then eyebrows, I mean, you can tell a lot by somebody's eyebrows. I used to think, giant bushy eyebrows were the worst, and then you see somebody with no eyebrows. I don't know. So eyebrows and teeth, they get me pretty close. The only thing I had specifically in mind, there's definitely some bones, some teeth on this chain, this whatever it is. Not necessarily human, maybe human, who knows? I'd say more than where the blacks are is the transition in and out of blacks. Like, have you feathering in? A lot of people use feathering everywhere when that should just be for form shadows and not cast shadows. A good example is like his lip here. That's a cast shadow, so it's got a hard edge, but the chin, you have light coming down, so that's a form shadow. So that should be, I mean, depending on your style, that should be feathered in. Sometimes it's hard to keep those straight, which shadows are cast and which ones are form. Makes a huge difference though. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind when I'm done pouting about my mistake yesterday. Trust me, I have been there. I remember this was a very long time ago, but I did this pen and ink drawing of like a cowboy, and I had nailed the texture on his poncho or whatever it is, kind of like the man with no name. I nailed the texture, and I was ecstatic. I'm like, this is going to be the greatest drawing ever. And then I continued to completely mess up the rest of the drawing. And to this day, it bothers me. Getting quite a bit done on this. Don't know if I'll be able to finish it up today. Probably not, but I think one more session. So I think that's 4 total. So 4 hours to ink this. It's pretty average, I would say. It's a pinup. You know, if you're doing panels, depending on how many panels you're doing, 4 hours is not very much time. Unless you are an artist from the 80s and you could do a lot of really good stuff really fast. It really is a different kind of skill set, muscle to do covers and to do paneled pages. It's kind of amazing. I mean, you have different goals. To some degree, you know, you want to evoke a story with a pinup or a cover, but you don't need to really tell a story. It should be kind of a cliffhanger, a moment in time, generally, if you're not doing a montage kind of thing like this. Then when you settle in and start doing pages again, it's just, you gotta breathe a little bit, and you gotta, okay, how many pages do I have left to tell a story? Exactly what am I gonna tell on this page and that page? So different. I like the idea of his hair also sort of mimicking tree branches. It's not too hard. I mean, they're dreads, so they kind of have that quality to start with, but it just works well with this cover, the trees in the back and sort of the gnarly hair. Speaking of which, I'm going to jump over to the trees a little bit just because I've been working on that guy's face for 35 minutes, so just got to mix it up a little bit. Have you ever worked on pages for someone else, or have you just done your own stuff? So many years ago, right out of college, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to do a short story. I said sure, and at the time I hadn't done really anything with comic books at all. I had read them forever, and I had kind of dabbled when I was younger, but I hadn't actually drawn anything comic book related in a very long time. So I said sure, and it was, I could be wrong, maybe 6 pages, 8 pages, something like that for the short story. He had a real specific style in mind. He wanted like Michael Turner, Witchblade kind of stuff, which it's not really my style, but I'm like, well, I'll give it a whirl. So we did it, and we actually went to Pittsburgh Comic-Con and had a table with my friend Kevin, his uncle, I think. We just Xeroxed a few copies together and just kind of showed it. A couple people stopped by, asked about it, said it was cool, but this was a very long time ago. There's no mechanism to really self-publish unless you were going to do something significant. So it was cool. After that, I had always wanted to return to it, but I didn't really have the opportunity for another 15 years. And then I had somebody, he wasn't a friend of mine, but we were working together. He's a designer and I'm a developer. And he said, hey, do you want to do a short story? I'm like, sure, I'll try it again. It's like 10 years later. And we did I think it was a little longer. This might have been 10 pages. So we finished it. It was definitely not a complete story. It was almost like a trailer for an ongoing comic. And I didn't really understand it, and I didn't even really know what the ongoing comic was. And then we tried to work together again on something, but we just couldn't sort of gel on the process. Like, he would give me a character, I would design something, his feedback was just inscrutable. So that kind of fell by the wayside. And then it was probably, 8 or 9 years whenever I picked up Horace H.H.Hoover. So I had 2 brief moments where I did a little bit of work with somebody else. I don't have the original short story I did, but I did find that second short story, and it's actually pretty tough to look at. It really is. It's not good as far as the art. So it's definitely interesting how that works out. That phase of not liking your own work is tough to work through. But once you get past that and you can focus on, instead of how you're doing something, you're focusing on what you're doing, basically. So it's not necessarily, I'm not struggling too much with how do I draw this. It's what do I want to draw? Do I want to have Horace Slurpin Max here with this character over there? Do I want to have creepy house in the back? And that's the shift that happens. Now that's not to say I don't make mistakes or anything like that, but generally what the problem is, again, is not how to do things, but what you're doing most of the time. Jimmy Reyes, holy cow. Hey, how's it going? I penciled this. This is all me. Thanks for popping in. Yeah, so I pencil, ink, color, and letter my comic book Horace H.H.Hoover. This is Horace, this is Slurp, and this is Max. These are his buddies. They help him investigate like supernatural stuff. It's set in the 1920s, 30s. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Stuff's amazing. His reflection on his face is always, it's always an issue. Not a bad thing, but man, it can get tough sometimes, especially with just the traditional stuff. There have been times where I've had to clean it up digitally because I really want it to be as slick as possible, so you really get the reflection. I don't know if it's just me. Well, it probably is just me. But every time I draw a tree, it ends up looking like the tree from Sleepy Hollow. Just because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. So I end up drawing that tree 1,000 times. I try not to make it look exactly like the Sleepy Hollow tree, but without a doubt, I always get the vibe going. That tiny little house in the back is going to be curious. Or church, I should say. I might break out the microns for that, just because it might get a little too muddled since it's so tiny. My screen might be flashing, not sure what's going on. I don't know if I should go all black in there or not, so I think I'll start with just leaving a little bit of white and just kind of see how that goes. I want Horace to pop forward, and you have Slurp's head here, which is all white. So I don't know if that makes too much sense. I want him to have kind of really funky teeth, like all busted and missing. Might have to go in with some white out on these teeth. I will definitely move to a different part of the drawing. Alrighty, looks like we're almost at 5 o'clock, so I'll probably call it a day. I'll probably have one more hour-long inking for this one, that's my guess. A little bit of white out cleanup. All right, yeah, sounds good. All right, let's take a look at it. Got quite a bit done. Thanks, Blue Teddy. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of black here, so that's not a bunch of work. The main characters are pretty well established with some detail, some texturing and whatnot, but yeah. Thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate it. I will probably finish this up tomorrow or the day after. Thanks again, and I will post this when it's done. All right, everybody, have a good evening. Talk to you later. Oh, sorry, I popped off for a second there. Yeah, Jimmy, Horace is, well, actually, it's on alternacomics.com. So issues 1 and 2, which I have here, actually. So issues 1 and 2 are out. And then I have issue 3 done, and issue 4 is on its way. Yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it.